Julius Erving came out with his top 10 all time. Mm-hmm. He didn't have LeBron in his first team in the top 10. He said LeBron was the reason all these super teams are starting. Now, this isn't somebody random. This is Julius Erving.
This is the doctor.
This is the doctor. Rucker Park legend. First ever slam dunk champion, the Afro ABA. He's a part of basketball history.
He's part of pop culture.
You can't tell a story without of basketball without Julius Erving.
ABA, all that.
Dr. J was Jordan before Jordan.
Nah. Yeah. So it's not somebody random. But he
didn't have a few people on both of those teams.
Let me preface this.
On both of those teams.
Everything you said about Dr. J is true.
What was
it may now be time to start looking at Dr. J and asking him if he needs assistance or help. Because is he losing his damn mind? Is he out of his mind?
Does the doctor need a doctor?
Does the doctor need a doctor? Does he need to still be judging dunk contests? Does he need to be judging anything right now?
I need to see who he is.
I love Dr. J was one of my heroes. He was Jordan before Jordan. You feel me? Like everybody remembers a legendary moment, him dunking on Michael Cooper.
We get all of that.
Going baseline. You feel me?
We know what he done.
Listen.
The resume speaks for itself.
Is he out of his mind?
He just going with the people he grew up watching. What's wrong with that? Them was the people he looked up to.
And that's why. But see,
Oscar Robertson, Wilton Steele. Them are the people he idolized.
But that's what I'm saying. That's
he did have multiple people from one team on his team. Like he had like Elgin Baylor, Jerry Westwood. I'm like that was a super team, dog. Like.
So that goes to the other point of him saying that LeBron's the reason for super teams. What did you say?
He's not. Super teams have been around for a while. The 86 Celtics are arguably the greatest basketball team of all time to a lot of people.
And the Showtime Lakers.
The Rockets tried to make a super team with Scottie, Charles, and Hakeem.
It just didn't work. But they tried to make it.
The Lakers tried to do it in 04.
Right. But is there a difference?
And they tried to do it with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash.
But is there a difference? Like we have this conversation in basketball circles all the time, whether you're on the court, whether you're just playing 2K with people, or you just like in general on social media. Is there because people bring up the concept of there can be a difference where a super team like the 80 Celtics has created the draft. They drafted McHale. They traded for Parrish. They got Larry Bird in the draft, as opposed to the new Millennium Heat. They got LeBron in free agency, Bosh in free agency. They drafted Wade. Is there a difference?
But it's a difference. It's a difference for the fact that think about when Wilt Chamberlain went from Philadelphia to L.A. People forget Wilt Chamberlain went to L.A. because he thought he was too big for Philadelphia. He knew he was a star.
That's true.
And it's a difference because you'll never get equal value for Wilt Chamberlain. Do people remember who Wilt Chamberlain was traded for?
I can't even.
Do people remember who Kareem was traded for when he left Milwaukee?
Nope.
No.
Okay, then what are we talking about? You'll never get equal value for those players. So like the Celtics drafted Bird and McHale. They traded for the Warriors. The Warriors always giving somebody the fuck up. They traded Robert Parrish. We drafted Vince Carter. I'm not even gonna get on that.
Yeah, don't even get on that. I already know.
The old swap, huh?
Yeah, I'm like they traded Robert Parrish to the Celtics for God knows who.
They tried to see Webb.
Yeah, who'd you give Weber up for? Was it Tom Gugliotta, right? You got Tom Gugliotta.
I know it was Wally. Keith Van Horn. What did it is?
After his rookie year,
we gave a Vince Carter for Antoine Jamison. Jamison was cool, but he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't Vince.
And then for Vince to come with a dunk contest in our house, like, all right, that's on top.
That was crazy.
But look though, so and then you think about the Showtime Lakers. Yes, they drafted Magic, they drafted Michael Cooper. When they got Bob McAdoo from the Buffalo Braves, Jamal Wilkes, they didn't draft these players.
People doing that, bro.
They were trading for these players. Like the first real player to make a move in free agency was Tom Chambers when he went from Seattle to Phoenix and all that.
Historian.
True. So that was the first. That was the first real movement of free agency. That was 1988, 89.
See, late 80s.
So like at the time you were drafting players, but teams were still building super teams just by trading players via trade because there was no such thing as free agency at the time.
Exactly. So it was via trade. It was
a different method to do it. So to say like
it evolved into free agents.
So to say that it's a difference. It was different because the system had to be played differently in the 80s.
But it was still happening.
Free agency didn't come around until the 90s, and even when it came around, player movement was still not happening. You had Alonzo Mourning go from Charlotte to Houston. You had Larry Johnson go to New York at one point. You had a little movement here, but the player empowerment movement started with LeBron. But he did not create super teams. Super teams been around. Just the method to create them had to be different because the way the system was different. There was no free agency.
Even Isaiah Thomas brought that up before. Isaiah Thomas talked about it before. Steve Smith, Dennis Scott, Shaq brought it up before. What happens is when you got a guy like Dr. J, well respected, when he's still perpetuating that type of narrative, then of course you're not gonna. The people that don't really study the sport and don't really know what's going on, they gonna just run with it.
Oh God.
They gonna just run with the narrative. But you got guys like Isaiah Thomas, and you got guys like I just mentioned that have said and even spoke about his team. They was missing some people. What some of his opinion was, and that's cool because that's his team. I mean, that's his opinion. That's who his all-time greats was. And like Kane was saying earlier, of course, you're gonna go with a little bit more comfortable players of that you're more familiar with. I probably would go with Bronze and Kobe's, and I'd probably have Jordan in there, Shaq in there. You know what I mean? So what happens is
any all-time team you make at the small forward position, LeBron is the option.
That's what I'm saying.
God.
He's the choice.
Elgin Baylor and Larry Bird are over me.
You have Magic Johnson, you have Michael Jordan, you have LeBron James, you have Tim Duncan, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Talk.
Well, that's the thing,
and that's what we saying.
But that's the thing I can't understand about the anti-LeBron stance. Him and I, we first started this. We talked about this. Listen, man, it's no disrespect. If you don't think LeBron James is the greatest player that ever lived, that's fine. Because you got Michael, you got a whole bunch of choices. But these
you gotta
people,
respect greatness. You gotta respect
at his
talent.
they
position-
think LeBron is a bum, like he's trash. I can't understand that. LeBron's one of the greatest players ever freaking lived.
At the end of the day, like I said when we first started this, to me, Michael Jordan is my goal for certain reasons.
Yeah.
But I respect LeBron's talent immensely. First of all, LeBron at the end of his career is going to be top 10, top 5 all time in assists and possibly rebounds, and he will be number 1 all time in scoring.
And everything.
And playoff, he's in everything right now.
So,
Top 5, top 10, every.
How could you like deny that man his greatness or his place in history? Like
they gonna keep doing it to me.
Longevity alone. I mean, he's number one.
Like, don't get me wrong. Elgin Baylor was a great player.
Larry Bird
was great, but like, come on, bro. Like,
come on.
It's worse when a guy like Dr. J says it because people look for validity with like certain takes.
Of course.
And if somebody who's living in his mom's basement who watches every single NBA game and like has never played,
but it's Dr. J.
But it's him.
But Dr. J ain't played in 40 years.
That's true too. Well, see, and that's another good point. When it comes to the evolution of the game, just like how we spoke on evolution of free agency, back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, there wasn't really free agency. So, of course, you're not going to have free agency movement. Even when you talk about the 90s and early 2000s, there were still guys that were getting signed to 5 and 6, 7-year deals in the NBA. So what happens is, of course, as it evolved, you're getting signed to 2 and 3 year deals, 1+1 deals. Well, yeah, you're going to have more free agent movement. So like it comes with anything. Players evolve. That's why when I have the conversation with people about eras, we have to compare the era of those players in that era.
Exactly.
And then the other players of another era. That's why you have 2, 3 different all-time teams if you want to have. Because when it comes down to it, you're going to end up getting into conversations, even I have before, with players or with people and fans that don't really understand basketball like that. So they're not really looking at it like, oh, from this point of view or this perspective of how a player is playing or how a team is built and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand. You see people disrespect certain players all the time. Like we talked about that list.
The goalpost gets moved all the time.
We talked about that list somebody made where they had how many people ahead of T-Mac on their list?
Oh my God, yeah, stupid.
They had Jermaine O'Neal's and all them ahead of T-Mac on the all-time list.
And
like
then,
like people like that, but it's like just to like.
Dominique didn't get selected for the top 50,
which is crazy.
We talk about the human highlight film, bro.
Come on.
He put Atlanta basketball on the map,
tomahawk himself, man.
And that's the thing is like when it comes to that and damn, I just lost my train of thought. When it comes to that, the goalpost gets moved how people want to move it. I was literally having a conversation with someone the other day that was saying, well, yeah, I mean, if Bron can finally get through this Clippers team, if he can get through this Suns team,
have to keep getting through everybody?
And if he can get through this Nets team, oh, my hands will go. I'm like, so every year it's the same.
It never ends.
I mean, come on.
It never ends.